Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 2 of part 23. In our last lecture we discussed extensively about the various kinds, shapes and colors of Krishna's tilak, and we'll continue in that way. Krishna's tilak is one of the many ornaments that add to his beauty and make him look beautiful. But actually, Srila Prabhupada explains that concept in reverse. In chapter 22 of Nectar Devotion, he writes that Krishna actually makes the ornaments on his body, including his tilak, look beautiful. He writes, quote, in the 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, 12th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhava tells Vidura, my dear sir, Krishna's form was most wonderful when he appeared on this planet and exhibited the potency of his internal energy. His wonderfully attractive form was present during his pastimes on this planet, and by his internal potency, he exhibited his opulences, which are striking to everyone. His personal beauty was so great that there was no necessity for wearing ornaments on his body. In fact, instead of the ornaments beautifying Krishna, Krishna's beauty enhanced the ornaments. Right, Krishna? But either way, Krishna's tilak is one item that stimulates his devotees' love for him. Shri Vallabhacharya, in his famous Madhur Ashtakam, he writes about the intoxicating influence of Krishna's tilak, among other things. Famously he wrote, Gitam madhuram patim madhuram, bhuktam madhuram, suptam madhuram, rupam madhuram, tilakam madhuram, madhuradi pater akilam madhuram. Speaking about Krishna. His melodious singing is sweet, his yellow silk cloth is sweet, his eating is sweet, his sleeping is sweet, his beauty is sweet, his yellow tilak is sweet. About the emperor of sweetness, everything is sweet. His melodious singing is sweet, his yellow silk cloth is sweet, his eating is sweet, his sleeping is sweet, his beauty is sweet, his yellow tilak is sweet. About the emperor of sweetness, everything is sweet. And it's for that reason that devotees take great pleasure in decorating Krishna with tilak, his intimate devotees in the spiritual world. Last Friday we described in detail how Mother Yasoda, the gopis, the cowherd boys, they all delight in decorating Krishna with tilak. And other devotees do as well. I was reading last night that after the pastime of Krishna's lifting Govardhan hill, when the Surabhi cow and Indradev came to see Krishna, they offered their respects to him, and then in her humble way, Surabhi came forward and it's described, spoke with the eloquence of the goddess of learning. O Lord, she said, you are the tilak mark of good fortune on the head of King Nanda's capital. Even if hundreds of Indras tried to kill the cows and gopas, you would protect Gokul and fill its citizens with bliss. Then it's described that Indra and Brahma together came forward and painted artistic tilak on Krishna's forehead. So others also put tilak on Krishna's forehead. And after that, overcome by bliss, the king of heaven, Indradev, he placed a regal crown on Krishna's head and declared, Krishna, you are the king of kings. Hare Krishna. Now, at this point, I think it would be appropriate to discuss the tilak of Krishna's eternal consort, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani. For Krishna's devotees, also wear tilak, and of course, she's the best of Krishna's devotees. Now, Radharani's tilak is called Smara Yantra. Smara Yantra. In Gitavali, in the prayer Radhastika by our beloved Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, therein he writes about Radharani's tilak. He writes, "This beloved daughter of Vrishabhanu is the diamond hira amongst the jewel-like adolescent girls. Her radiant complexion, like molten gold, elegantly complements her blue garments and dark curly hair. With her forehead marked with tilak, her roving blue eyes outlined with beryllium, and her limbs elegantly adorned with jewelry, Radharani appears to be sweetness personified." Similarly, in Govinda Dasa's Padavali, we hear one time Sri Radha, in separation from Krishna, was dressed in a black sari and decorated with pearl ornaments and a garland of flowers. Her complexion was golden with kumkum, her lips were red like betel, and her eyes lined with black kajal ointment. The tilak of good fortune graced her forehead. Jeweled earrings framed her cheeks. Sweetness shone from her limbs, and yet sorrow filled her heart, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she sat silently in separation from her beloved. There again we hear about her beautiful tilak. Of course, Srimati Radharani's tilak does not look much like the vertical lines of Krishna's tilak, which we discussed last Friday. Her tilak is more of an artistic design on her forehead, and sometimes may not be so apparent because of her complexion, like molten gold. Meaning that because one kind of tilak her servants adorn her with is Gopichandan tilak, which is itself the color of gold. Therefore her tilak remains a little hidden by her golden complexion. Now, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchi Lila, chapter 18, we get a glimpse of another kind of Radharani's tilak. Therein, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, "The nectar that flows from Radha's form comes from her natural fragrance, which resembles a blend of camphor, kumkum, and roses, further enriched by the musk and aguru in her tilak and unguents." Further enriched by the musk and guru in her tilak and unguents. So it appears that this form of Radha's tilak is made from musk and aguru oil. We say oud many times these days. That's what her tilak's made of. Musk and oud, or aguru oil. So interesting. And from Shastra we also learn that like Krishna, Srimati Radharani doesn't apply her own tilak, but other devotees lovingly do so for her. For example, in Astakala Lila Padavali, it's a book by a great devotee named Raya Shekhar, we hear how Mother Yasoda often dresses Sri Radha in beautiful clothes and ornaments, including auspicious tilak. Raya Shekhar writes, Yashoda motions for Radha to take her place on a seat in the center of the room, and with great affection begins to dress and ornament her. By first retying Radha's soft curly hair into a graceful braid. Braja's queen then applies fresh vermilion in the part of Radha's hair, tilak on her forehead, and beryllium over her eyelids. Then she steps back to get a better look, marveling at her own artistry. So beautifully described. So Mother Yasoda puts Radharani's tilak on. In our previous class we discussed how sometimes Krishna's friends, his gopas or even gopis, they put Krishna's tilak on him. But it's interesting that sometimes Krishna himself puts tilak on his favorite gopi, Srimati Radharani. In Govinda Lilamrita, we hear, I'll quote here, once Krishna ornamented his beloved Radharani. Afterwards, only for Krishna's pleasure did Radha examine her own reflection. It was incomparably beautiful, the eternal residence of loving sacrifice, in which her forehead was a golden sacrificial altar, the Yagyashala. Her curly locks were like the magic syllables of the sacrifice. Her multicolored tilak, a smara yantra. Her black eyeliner, the sacred ash, and the decorative flowers, uncontaminated offerings. Now therein, you may have noticed, it's mentioned her tilak was like a smara yantra. So I don't know what a smara yantra was, so I looked it up. What's a smara yantra? Yantras are, in general, how could you say, symbolic geometrical patterns. And Shastra describes that when they represent the god of love, Kandarpa or Cupid, they're called smara yantras. So she has that on her forehead. So, but not only do Krishna and Mother Yasoda ornament Vrindavaneshwari with tilak, but Radharani's maidservants obviously do as well. And there's a very, very beautiful description of Srimati Radharani's girlfriends ornamenting her with tilak and, other ornaments as well. I found it in Garga Samhita, chapter 20, entitled, what's the title? Rasa Krida, meaning the rasa dance pastime. So therein it is written. It's so beautiful. Sri Narada said, after enjoying water pastimes, handsome Lord Krishna went with the gopis to Govardhan Hill. On Govardhan Hill, in a cave where the ground was made of jewels, Lord Krishna enjoyed a rasa dance with Sri Radha, the queen of the rasa dance. Sitting on a flower throne, Sri Radha and Krishna shone like a monsoon cloud and lightning on the hill. There, their happy gopi friends decorated their queen Radha with sandal, kumkum, yavaka, aguru, and kajal. The gopis worshipped Kirti's daughter Radha with offerings of honey, and Shri Jamunaji gave Nupura anklets to her. Sri Ganga gave splendid manjira anklets. Sri Rama gave a network of tinkling ornaments, and Madhu Madhavi gave a beautiful necklace. Viraja, the gopi Viraja, gave a beautiful Chandrakanta necklace, splendid as millions of moons. Lalita Saki gave a jeweled bodice, and Vishaka Saki gave a neck ornament. Chandranana, the gopi, Chandranana gave many jeweled rings, and the gopi Ekadasi gave to Radha 2 bracelets rich with many jewels. Satta Chandranana, wow, Satta Chandranana gopi gave many jewel Bhuja Kankana armlets, and Madhumati gave a pair of glittering Angada armlets. The gopi Bandi gave Tatanka earrings. Sukha Dayani gopi gave Kundala earrings, and the close friend Anandi gave a Bala Torona ornament to Sri Radha. A Bala Torona. We'll have to wait to get back to the spiritual sky to know what that is. Then Padma Gopi gave beautiful forehead tilak. Chandakala gave a bindu, and Padmavati gave a nose pearl that moved, it's described, to and fro. O king, her beautiful friend Chandrakanta gave Radha a charming balapushpa, splendid as the rising sun. Sundari gave a crest jewel. Praharsini Gopi, gave a braid jewel, and the goddess Vrinda, the queen of Vrindavan, Vrinda Devi, gave Chandra and Surya ornaments glittering like 10 million lightning flashes. Accompanied by brilliantly decorated Radha on the king of mountains, Lord Krishna shone with great glory. The place on Govardhan Hill where Sri Radha was decorated like this is known as Sringara Mandala. Let's go to Sringara Mandala next Kartik. Tell the pastime again and again and again. And it finishes. Then accompanied by his beloved gopis, Lord Krishna went to the lake, Chanda Sarovara. Hare Krishna, such a beautiful description. And there's Tilak in there. Now, Tilak plays an important role in stimulating love for Radha and Krishna, as well as in the combined forms of Radha and Krishna, known as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tilak also plays an important role in stimulating our love for him. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8:14, we hear how that when Lord Chaitanya discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund, it's a wonderful pastime. Mahaprabhu discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund. He took mud, sacred mud, from Radhakund and applied it in 12 places as tilak. Kundera Mritika Lasa Latika Hariya Bhattacharya Dhora Matrika Ange Kari Laila. Quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then marked his body with tilak, made from the mud of Radhakund. And with the help of Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he collected some of the mud and took it with him. Furthermore, in Chaitanya Bhagavat by Vrindavan Das Thakur, we learned that when Mahaprabhu was teaching as a young man, you could say actually a boy, he was known as Nimai Pandit, and he had a school, a tola. And whenever a student would come to school without tilak, Nimai Pandit would refuse to see that student's face. He would say, since you are not wearing tilak, my dear student, you must not have done your morning puja. And if you did not perform puja, then most probably you didn't bathe. So you're coming before all of us in an unclean manner. It's described that he would thus humiliate the student, because sometimes the teacher is to chastise. So he would humiliate the student in this way. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, send him back home, saying, take bath, apply tilak, and then return. Otherwise, you cannot come here for studying. To see your forehead without tilak is like seeing a cremation ground. Cremation ground. Take your crematorium and get out of here. Ooh. Strong words. Strong words. We hear how Mahaprabhu could be strong like a thunderbolt, but soft as a rose. But such words are necessary because they stress the importance of tilak for every devotee of Krishna. I found a verse in the Padma Purana where Krishna says, to please me, devotees apply tilak with a peaceful mind. With a peaceful mind. Every morning and evening, as well as during worship and sacrifice. And the Lord says, tilak brings prosperity, protects against danger, and destroys fear. Therefore, one should always wear tilak. And of course, we all know how much Srila Prabhupada encouraged all of us to wear tilak. I researched it a bit and I found this letter that Prabhupada, it was 1970, Prabhupada wrote his godbrother, Madhava Maharaj. He wrote like this. Everything is possible by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he specifically appeared to reclaim the most fallen souls. And I find it practically daily that although these Western boys and girls are fallen in the material estimate, they have taken to this Krishna consciousness movement very seriously. And the result is very quick. Jai Prabhupada. The newspaper reporters advertise these boys and girls as bright-faced, and actually it is so. By nature, these American boys and girls are fair-complexioned or white. They are beautiful also, and when they take to Krishna consciousness with symbols of mala and tilak, they appear to be coming directly from the Vaikuntha planets. All by your grace, Srila Prabhupada, only by your grace. In Nectar of Devotion, chapter 6, Srila Prabhupada writes, Srila Rupa Goswami states that his elder brother, Srila Sanatana Goswami, has compiled Hari Bhakti Vilas for the guidance of the Vaishnavas. And therein has mentioned many rules and regulations to be followed by the Vaishnavas. Some of them are very important and prominent, and Sri Rupa Goswami will now mention these very important items for our benefit. So Prabhupada continues, one of those many rules that Rupa Goswami mentions is that one should decorate the body with tilak, which is the sign of the Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada comments on this instruction. He writes, it's interesting. The idea is that as soon as a person sees these marks on the body of the Vaishnava, that person will immediately remember Krishna. Lord Chaitanya said that a Vaishnava is he who, when seen, reminds one of Krishna. Therefore, it is essential that a Vaishnava mark his body with tilak to remind others of Krishna. Now, I was thinking it's interesting that Prabhupada writes, it is essential that a Vaishnava mark his body with tilak so as to remind others, and he's referring here to non-devotees, of Krishna. Essentially, Srila Prabhupada is saying that tilak can even be the stimuli for awakening Krishna consciousness even in the hearts of non-devotees. Beginning, of course, but, well, there's the Hare Krishna. There they have that mark on their forehead. There's a mark on their forehead. They're Hare Krishnas. And they say the name of Krishna. So, as Vaishnava, it's only natural, isn't it, that we hope one day millions of people around the world will wear tilak. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is famous for saying that he desired that one day high court judges everywhere would wear Vaishnava tilak. Furthermore, he said this would be a symbol of the successful influence of Krishna consciousness in the world. You go to court and there's the judge wearing Vaishnava. Oh, that's good. All right, well. So this encouraging of others to wear tilak, it reminded me of a pastime in Sri Vrindavan Dham, our beloved Braj. I'm in Mayapur now, it's very nice, but I'm also missing Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, there's a village with the name Tilaka Gadi. In that village, or rather how that village got its name is very interesting. Once upon a time, long ago, a very empowered Gaudiya Vaishnav Babaji lived there. This Babaji performed his bhajan in a cottage just outside the village. And after some years had passed, the local villagers treated him as their local saint and representative of Krishna. And as time went by, this Babaji, this Gaudiya Vaishnava Babaji, impressed upon those villagers the importance of chanting Krishna's holy names and decorating their bodies with Gaudiya Vaishnava tilak. And it's described that gradually some of the men and the women of that village began to mark their bodies with Gopi Chandan and regularly chant the Mahamantra on japa beads. Krishna consciousness is contagious in the good sense, so eventually the whole entire village followed suit. And because everyone in this village ended up wearing tilak, that village became known as Tilaka Gadi. Tilaka Gadi. The sadhus say a name and a practice that actually endures to this present day. Yeah. So I think next Kartik we should go to Tilak Gadi and make sure that we have good, bright Gopi Chandan tilak on our faces, and then they'll welcome us. So as far as possible, we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas should wear tilak. Now I say as far as possible, which means, of course, that it may not always be possible because, well, many devotees go to their workplace, or they go to school, and it may not be practical to wear tilak. Even then, I know some devotees who, I could say bravely, do wear tilak to work. And I even know two young students of mine, they wear tilak to school. And all their friends think it's cool. But you have to be brave to do that, isn't it? To go to work with tilak. In this regard, one time Srila Prabhupada told the story that there was a factory in India some time back where the owner and most of the workers were Vaishnavas. And these Vaishnavas, they had the freedom, therefore working in that environment, they had the freedom to wear their Vaishnav tilak to work. After some time, however, the ownership and the management of that factory changed, and the new proprietor was a Muslim. And on taking over the business, the Muslim owner, he declared that he would no longer allow all the workers to come to work wearing Vaishnav tilak. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada said that almost all the workers obeyed. One employee, however, thought he would take his chances and depend on Krishna. So he went to work wearing very clear, bright, yellow-white Gopi Chandan Vaishnav tilak. And that morning, after seeing all the workers assembled, the new Muslim proprietor, he said, to the workers, this one devotee who has worn Vaishnav tilak against my instruction, he's actually very brave. He's very courageous. Therefore, he is permitted to continue wearing tilak to work, but all others are forbidden to wear it anymore. Hare Krishna. So as I said, I know some brave devotees who wear tilak to work. But if that is not practical, and sometimes it's not practical, we should at least wear tilak whenever possible. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, Srila Sanatana Goswami Prabhupada, he quotes Krishna, who said, if a Vaishnav who wears the sacred tilak mark, which goes upward like a flame, eats grains in someone's house, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, liberate his 20 previous generations from their sufferings in hellish planets. That's Hari Bhakti Vilas 4, 203. And another verse from Hari Bhakti Vilas. O King of the birds, Garuda, if Gopi Chandan is marked on anyone's forehead by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, no planets, sun, moon, Mars, etc., yakshas and demigods, ghosts and devils, snakes and demons can harm such a person. Hari Bhakti Vilas 4, 238. Nectar. Of course, our purpose in decorating our bodies with tilak, while chanting 12 of Krishna's auspicious holy names, is for, of course, purification and protection, as we mentioned in the first lecture, but ultimately a stimulation for developing ecstatic love for Krishna and for Krishna's eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna. So today we'll conclude our discussion on Krishna and his devotees, tilak, as a stimuli for awakening ecstatic love by reciting, this is really nice, by reciting what? By reciting the glories of Gopi Chandan Tilak from Garga Samhita, Canto 6, Chapter 15, beginning from text 15. When I found that, I was like, whoa, that's a perfect ending. Garga Samhita describes the glories of Gopi Chandan Tilak. What better ending do we have? Here it is. It's a little long, but that's good. Garga Samhita. Simply by hearing about Gopi Bhumi, which is so named because the gopis resided there, one becomes free from the bondage of karma. In Gopi Bhumi, Gopi Chandan was manifested from the gopis' cosmetics. A person who marks his limbs with Gopi Chandan Tilak attains the result of bathing in Mother Ganges. A person who daily wears Gopi Chandan Tilak attains the pious result of daily bathing in all the sacred rivers in creation. A person who daily wears Gopi Chandan Tilak attains the result of performing 1,000 Aswamedha Yagyas and 100 Rajasuya Yagyas. He attains the result of giving charity and following vows in all the holy places in creation. What's more, he attains the goal of life. Of this there is no doubt. Please, Prabhus, don't see this all as exaggeration. One of the offenses to the holy name is to think of the glories of the holy name or anything connected to Krishna consciousness as exaggeration. This is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, transcendentally. Goes on. Twice as sacred as the mud of the Ganga is the dust of Chitrakuta. Twice as sacred as the mud of the Ganga is the dust of Chitrakuta. 10 times more sacred than that is the dust of Panchavati Tirtha. 100 times more sacred is the dust of Gopi Chandan. Please know that Gopi Chandan is equal to the dust of Vrindavan. Brajrenu, when we go to Vrindavan, isn't it? We roll in the dust, we take some dust, we put it in our mouths, we take it home. It's one of the 5 personalities who grant entrance into Braj. Garga Samhita is saying, please know that Gopi Chandan is equal to the dust of Vrindavan. Even if in the past one has committed hundreds of sins, if such a person wears Gopi Chandan Tilak, then Yamaraj cannot take him away. How then can Yamaraj's messengers touch him? When we die, we want to have tilak on. A sinner who daily wears Gopi Chandan Tilak goes to Lord Krishna's supreme abode, Goloka, which is beyond the world of matter. In relationship to this, in Sindhu Desh, there was a king named Dirgha Bahu. He was most cruel and sinful, and he was addicted to visiting prostitutes. While he was on earth, this cruel sinner murdered 100 brahmanas and 10 pregnant women. One day he mounted a Sindhu horse, it's described as Sindhu horse, and went hunting. With a flood of arrows, he accidentally killed a brown cow in that hunt. One day, greedy to get this king's kingdom, with a sharp sword, his angry minister, his chief minister, killed the king in the forest. Seeing him fallen to the ground and dead, the Yamadutas came, bound him up, and joking as they went, took him to the city, it's described, the city of Yamaraj, Yamaraj's city. Seeing this sinner brought before him, powerful Yamaraj said to his scribe, Chitragupta, what is the proper punishment for this man? Sri Chitragupta said, O great king, he should be thrown into 8,400,000 hells for as long as the sun and the moon shine in the sky. On the earth he did not perform a single pious deed. He killed 10 pregnant women And he killed a brown cow. He killed thousands of deer in the forest. He offended the demigods and the Brahmins. He is a great sinner, my Lord. Sri Narada said, then by Yamaraj's order, the Yamadutas took that sinner and threw him into a terrible 8,000-mile wide cauldron of bubbling, boiling oil in the hell of Kumbhipaka. That's one of the worst hells, Kumbhipaka. However, the moment that sinner came to it, the boiling oil, which was described as hot as the great fires at the time of cosmic devastation, that boiling oil suddenly became cool, very cool. O king of Videha, as Prahlad was unhurt in the same situation, that sinner was not hurt by the boiling oil. It became very cool. Then the Yamadutas went and described with great wonder what had happened to the noble-hearted Yamaraj, So then Yamaraj and Chitragupta, they carefully reviewed, they went back and reviewed the sinner's case and concluded that while he was on earth, yes, not at any moment had he ever performed a single pious deed. So they were kind of bewildered. Then at that very moment, Srila Vyasadeva arrived in that assembly, bowing down before him and carefully worshipping him. Saintly and noble-hearted Yamaraj asked Vyasadeva the following question. Shri Yamaraj said, when a certain sinner who had never performed even a single pious deed was thrown into the terrible boiling oil of Kumbhipaka, my Lord, the oil suddenly became very cool. Because of this, my mind is now tortured with doubts. So, Srila Vyasadeva said, O great king, the intelligent sages who have studied all the scriptures know that the ways of piety, sin, and spiritual progress are very subtle and difficult to understand. Yet, somehow or other, by destiny, this sinner did perform a pious deed that you haven't noticed. And by that deed, he became purified. O noble-hearted one, please now hear the story of this. And as I was reading that, my hair stood on end. Not because of excellence, just like, wow. That sinner died in a place where from someone's hand, some Gopi Chandana tilak from Dwarka had actually fallen on the ground. Dying in Gopi Chandan, the sinner died and he fell down on top of this Gopi Chandan. Dying in Gopi Chandan, the sinner became completely purified. Wow. A person who wears Gopi Chandan tilak ultimately attains a spiritual form like that of Lord Narayan. By seeing him, one becomes free from the sin of killing a brahmana. Sri Narada said, hearing this, Yamaraj, who understands the glories of Gopi Chandan, took the sinner, placed him on an airplane that goes anywhere one wishes. Placed him on an airplane that goes anywhere one wishes, sent him straight to Vaikuntha, which is above the worlds of matter, beyond the worlds of matter. O king, thus I have described to you the glories of Gopi Chandan. One who simply hears this account, Prabhus, one who simply hears this account said of Gopi Chandan's glories becomes exalted. You are all now exalted. He goes eventually to the supreme abode of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Garga Samhita ki, Gopi Chandan Tilak ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Wow. That's all for today. You have a lot to digest there. I hope that, next time you're in front of the mirror and you're putting on your tilak, you remember some of the glories of tilak that we've described today, some of the instructions therein as well, and this will help you very quickly make it back to the spiritual world. We should think of tilak in that way. It's one of the items that Krishna wears. It's divine, and he requests his devotees to wear it, and certainly we know Srila Prabhupada requested us to wear it whenever practical, whenever possible. So thank you. See you next Friday. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Babu Bada ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yajna ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai 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 Sri Radhe.